My name is Elena. I'm 30 years old, and I used to believe marriage meant safety. I thought when you found the right person, you found home. But on a freezing November night, standing barefoot on my front porch in nothing but a thin cotton nightgown, I learned that home can become a prison. My husband had just thrown me out into the cold, screaming words that still echo in my mind. But what my neighbor did that night changed everything Derek thought he controlled. Before I share what happened, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss stories like mine. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I met Derek 5 years ago at a small coffee shop in downtown Seattle. It was one of those gray October mornings when the rain fell soft and steady, and the whole city smelled like wet pavement and roasted beans. I was there finishing a proposal for work, my laptop balanced precariously on a wobbly table when he walked in. He had this presence about him, confident but not arrogant, the kind of man who seemed to know exactly what he wanted. He ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and when he turned around, our eyes met. He smiled. I smiled back. That was all it took. 3 days later, he found me at the same coffee shop. He said he'd been hoping I'd be there. He brought yellow tulips, my favorite, though I'd never told him that. He just guessed. We talked for 2 hours that day about everything and nothing. He was a software engineer, worked for one of those tech companies that everyone's heard of, but nobody really understands what they do. He asked about my job in marketing, seemed genuinely interested when I explained campaign strategies and client presentations. He laughed at my jokes. He remembered I took my latte without sugar. Our first real date was dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Capitol Hill. Derek wore a navy suit and brought me white roses this time. He pulled out my chair, poured my wine, asked thoughtful questions about my childhood, my dreams, my fears. He made me feel seen, heard, cherished. When he walked me to my car that night, he kissed my forehead and said, "I think you might be exactly who I've been looking for." My heart melted right there on that sidewalk. We got married 18 months later. The wedding was small, intimate, held at a vineyard outside Portland on a perfect June afternoon. Both our families were there. My mom cried happy tears. Derek's parents told me how lucky their son was to have found me. Sarah, my best friend since college, was my maid of honor. She whispered during the reception, "You found your person, Elle. I'm so happy for you." I believed her. I believed all of it. That first year of marriage felt like a dream. Derek made breakfast every Sunday morning, scrambled eggs with cheese the way I liked them, toast with butter and strawberry jam. We'd sit on our small apartment balcony watching the city wake up, planning our future. We went hiking every weekend, exploring trails around Mount Rainier, holding hands as we walked through forests that smelled like pine and rain. He supported my career, celebrated when I landed a big client, listened when I vented about difficult coworkers. We started looking at houses, talking about kids. Derek wanted 2, maybe 3. I wanted to wait a couple more years, establish myself at work first. He said he understood that we had time, that he just wanted me to be happy. But then things started changing. Small things at first, so subtle I almost didn't notice. Derek began asking more questions about my workday. Not the usual, "How was your day?" questions, but specific ones. "Who did you talk to today? What did Mark from accounting want when he stopped by your desk? Why did that meeting run late?" At first I thought he was just interested, just being a caring husband who wanted to know about my life. I answered everything honestly because I had nothing to hide. Then one evening, about 6 months into our marriage, Derek suggested I quit my job. We were washing dishes after dinner, and he said it so casually, like he was commenting on the weather. "You know, babe, you work so hard. Maybe you should take a break, focus on us, on building our family." I laughed it off. "I love my job, Derek, and we need both incomes if we want to buy a house." His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "We could make it work on my salary. I just think your job stresses you out. I want to take care of you." I told him no gently, and he nodded like he understood. But I saw something flicker across his face, something I couldn't quite name. Looking back now, I recognize it. Displeasure. Control slipping. The questions about work intensified. Derek started calling me during the day, sometimes 3 or 4 times. If I didn't answer immediately, he'd ask why. I was in a meeting wasn't good enough. He wanted details. Which meeting, who was there? Why didn't I text him beforehand to let him know I'd be unavailable? Then he started in on my friends. Sarah called one Friday afternoon to invite me to brunch that weekend. When I told Derek, his face hardened. Again, you just saw her 2 weeks ago. She's my best friend, I said. We try to get together regularly. Derek sighed, that long, disappointed sigh that made my stomach clench. Your friends don't understand our marriage, Elena. They're all single and bitter. They don't get what it takes to build a life with someone. Every time you see them, you come home different, distant. I started declining Sarah's invitations. It was easier than fighting about it. My family was next. My mom called every Sunday, had for years. It was our tradition, catching up on the week, sharing recipes, making plans for holidays. Derek started making comments when the phone rang. It's your mom again. Doesn't she have her own life? He'd sit next to me during the calls, listening, his presence making it impossible to speak freely. Eventually, he started suggesting we needed space from my family. Your mom always criticizes me, Elena. Did you notice that last time we visited? She made that comment about the way I organized the garage. And your dad barely speaks to me. They don't approve of us. Can't we just have some space from all that negativity? I started calling my mom less. She noticed. She worried. I made excuses about being busy with work, with the house, with life. The guilt ate at me, but Derek's disappointment felt worse somehow. A year into our marriage, Derek suggested we open a joint bank account. It'll simplify things, he said. Make it easier to manage household expenses, save for that house we want. It seemed reasonable. Couples did this all the time. I transferred my paycheck into the joint account, closed my individual one. Derek said he was so proud of me for trusting him, for choosing us over independence. Within weeks, he started questioning every purchase. I bought shampoo and conditioner at Target, $45 for both. He saw the transaction on our banking app and called me at work. $45 at Target. What did you buy? Just toiletries, I said, confused by his tone. That seems expensive for shampoo. It's the brand I always use. Maybe you should switch to something more economical. We're trying to save for a house, remember? I switched brands. The new shampoo made my hair feel like straw, but it was $7 instead of $18, and Derek stopped questioning it. He started buying clothes for me. I'd come home from work to find shopping bags on the bed, dresses and blouses in muted colors, high necklines, long sleeves. I saw these and thought of you, he'd say. Try them on for me. They weren't my style. I preferred brighter colors, more modern cuts. But when I wore the clothes Derek chose, he smiled and told me how beautiful I looked, how professional, how perfect. When I wore my own clothes, he'd frown. That dress is too tight, Elena. You're attracting attention at work. Is that what you want, men looking at you? I started wearing the clothes he bought. My own wardrobe gathered dust in the back of the closet. Sarah called in late September, excited about a new brunch spot that had opened near Green Lake. Sunday at 11, please say yes, I miss you so much. I wanted to say yes. I missed her too, missed laughing until we cried, missed the easy comfort of friendship that asked nothing but presence. But Derek was in the room watching me, and I knew what would happen if I agreed. I'm not sure I can make it, I started to say, but Derek took the phone from my hand. Sarah, this is Derek. Elena's really busy with some home projects this weekend. Maybe another time. He hung up before she could respond. Why did you do that? I asked, my voice shaking. You're choosing your friends over me again, he said, and his voice was so cold, so different from the man I'd married. Every time, Elena, you always choose them. That's not fair. Sarah's important to me. And I'm not. Your husband isn't important. Of course you are. But that's not what this is about. Isn't it? Because it feels like you'd rather spend time with people who don't even know you anymore. You've changed, Elena. You've grown. But they still treat you like you're that single girl who spent her weekends at bars looking for attention. That's not who I was. I thought you loved me. I guess I was wrong. Those words hit like a slap. I called Sarah back later from the bathroom with the water running so Derek couldn't hear. I told her I couldn't make brunch. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Elle, is everything okay? You sound different lately." "Everything's fine," I lied. "I'm just busy." I stopped taking her calls after that. It hurt less than explaining why I couldn't see her. At work, things got worse. Derek demanded I text him my schedule every morning, a detailed account of every meeting, every task, every moment of my day. He called constantly. My coworkers started noticing. My manager, Patricia, pulled me aside one afternoon. "Elena, is everything all right at home? You seem distracted and your phone rings constantly." "I'm fine," I said automatically. "Derek just worries, you know. He cares a lot." Patricia's expression said she didn't believe me, but she didn't push. I was grateful for that. I couldn't have explained even if I wanted to. How do you tell someone that your husband's love feels like a cage? That every call is a check, every question a test, you're terrified of failing? The verbal abuse started gradually. So gradually, I almost didn't recognize it for what it was. Derek had always been particular about things. He liked the house a certain way, liked his coffee a certain temperature, liked his shirts folded just so. When things weren't right, he'd sigh, shake his head, make small comments. "I guess this is the best you can do." But as our second year of marriage approached, the comments became sharper, meaner, more frequent. I cooked dinner one Thursday evening, chicken with roasted vegetables and rice, a meal I'd made dozens of times. Derek took one bite and pushed his plate away. "This is overcooked. The chicken's dry. Did you even use a timer?" "I followed the same recipe I always use," I said quietly. "Well, it's terrible. You're useless, Elena. Can't even cook a decent meal." The words stunned me. He'd never spoken to me like that before, never called me useless. I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, unable to move. Derek stood, grabbed his plate, and threw the entire contents into the trash. Then he took the serving dishes, the ones I'd carefully plated, and dumped those too. The crash of ceramic against metal made me flinch. "My mother was right," he said, staring at the ruined food. "You're not good enough for this family." I cried myself to sleep that night. Derek never apologized. After that, the insults came regularly. If I forgot to pick up his dry cleaning, I was irresponsible. If I worked late, I was neglecting him. If I questioned anything he said, I was argumentative and disrespectful. He'd stand over me while I sat on the couch, his voice loud, his words cutting until I felt so small I could barely breathe. Then came the threats. We were fighting about money again. I'd bought a book, $12 on Amazon, and Derek had seen the charge. He was furious. "We're supposed to be saving, and you're wasting money on garbage you don't need." "It's one book, Derek. $12. It's the principle, Elena. You don't respect me. You don't respect this marriage. Maybe you should just leave if you're so unhappy." "I don't want to leave. I want us to work." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Work without me? You're nothing. Who would want you? You think you can just walk away and start over? You're 30 years old. No real skills, no prospects. Where would you even go?" "I have a job, I have family." "Your job," he sneered. "I could end that with one phone call. You think people at your company don't know me? I know people on the board, Elena. One conversation about how unstable you've been lately, how you've been stealing from the company accounts, and you're done. And your family. The family you barely talk to anymore. You think they'd take you in after you've ignored them for 2 years. Fear settled in my chest, cold and heavy. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was smart, connected, convincing, and I had become so isolated, so cut off from everyone who might help me, that his threats felt like inevitable truths. The isolation was complete now. My mom still tried calling, but Derek had figured out her schedule. He'd answer my phone when she called, pleasant and charming. "Hi, Mrs. Davis. Elena's in the shower. I'll have her call you back." Then he'd delete the call log, so I never knew she'd tried to reach me. When I asked about my mom during one of our increasingly rare calm moments, Derek said she'd stopped calling. I think she's finally accepted that you've moved on, built your own life. It's healthy, really. You can't be a little girl forever. I found out later he'd blocked her number entirely along with Sarah's, along with everyone who might have noticed I was disappearing. I tried to find help. At work during my lunch break, I'd hide in a bathroom stall and search on my phone. Signs of emotional abuse. How to leave a controlling partner. Every article I read described my life with terrifying accuracy. I was being abused. The man I'd married, the man I'd loved, was systematically destroying who I was. One afternoon, I used my work laptop to look up divorce lawyers, clearing my browser history immediately after. I made a list of things I'd need, documents I'd have to gather, money I'd need to hide. But Derek monitored everything. Our joint account, the credit cards, even my email. He'd installed tracking apps on my phone without telling me, could see every text, every call, every website I visited. I felt trapped in a glass box, screaming with no one hearing. But I had to try. I had to get out. I called Sarah from work from the bathroom on the third floor that hardly anyone used. My hands shook so hard I could barely dial. She answered on the second ring. Elena. Oh my God. Elle, is that really you? Sarah, I whispered, and then I was crying, all the fear and loneliness pouring out in great gasping sobs. Where are you? Are you safe? Talk to me. I need help. I need to get out. I can't do this anymore. Out of what? Out of your marriage. Elena, what's happening? I told her everything. The control, the isolation, the threats, the fear. She listened, crying with me, and when I finished, she said, This is abuse, Elle. You know that, right? This is serious. You need to leave him. I'm scared. I know, but I'm here. We'll figure this out together. Can you meet me this weekend, Saturday morning? I'll try. No, don't try. Do it. I'll be at our coffee shop, the one where we used to study for finals. 10 o'clock Saturday morning. I'll wait all day if I have to. Just come, okay? I agreed. I had to. It was the only lifeline I had left. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of northwest November day where the sky pressed down heavy and close. I woke early before Derek and lay in bed planning. I'd tell him I needed to go grocery shopping. He usually let me do that alone since he hated the store. I'd meet Sarah, figure out a plan, come home before he got suspicious. But when I got up and started getting dressed, Derek was suddenly awake, watching me from the bed. Where are you going? Just to the store. We need milk and bread. He picked up his phone, tapped the screen a few times, and I watched his expression change. Suspicion hardened into rage. Liar. What? You're meeting Sarah. I can see it right here. You've been texting her from your work phone. I'd been so careful. I thought work emails were safe. But of course he'd found a way. He always found a way. Derek, please. I just need to talk to someone. About what? About me. About our private life. You want to run to your friend and trash me? Make me look like the bad guy. That's not what this is. Then what is it, Elena? Explain it to me. He got out of bed, crossed the room in 3 strides, stood between me and the door. After everything I've done for you, I gave you a home. I gave you security. I've loved you when no one else would. And this is how you repay me, by sneaking around behind my back. I'm not sneaking around. I just wanted to see my friend. Your friend who hates me. Your friend who's been trying to break us up since day one. Sarah doesn't hate you, doesn't she? Every time you talk to her, you come back questioning me, questioning us. She's poison, Elena. She wants you to be as miserable and alone as she is. The argument escalated. Derek's voice got louder, his words sharper. I tried to stay calm, tried to reason with him, but nothing worked. He grabbed my phone, went through my messages, saw everything. The searches about abuse, the divorce lawyer websites, the desperate texts to Sarah. You want to leave me? His voice was dangerously quiet now. You actually think you can leave? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. It's all right here. He held up the phone. You've been planning this, sneaking around, lying to me. I just needed to know my options. Your options. He laughed sharp and bitter. You don't have options. You have me. That's it. The fight continued through breakfast, through the morning, into the afternoon. Every time I tried to leave the room, Derek followed his anger, a living thing that filled every space. I was exhausted, terrified, desperate for it to end. By evening, I was done fighting. I just wanted quiet. I went to our bedroom, put on my nightgown, climbed into bed. Maybe if I went to sleep tomorrow would be better. Maybe we could start over. Maybe if I just tried harder to be what he wanted, this would all stop. But Derek wasn't finished. He came into the bedroom around 10 o'clock at night holding my phone. I called your mother. My blood went cold. What? I called her and told her what you've been doing. How you've been lying, sneaking around, planning to destroy our marriage. You had no right. I had every right. I'm your husband. And you know what? She agreed with me. She said you've always been dramatic, always looking for problems where there aren't any. She's disappointed in you, Elena. Your whole family is. I knew he was lying. My mom would never say those things. But the fact that he'd called her at all, that he'd involved her in this nightmare, made something in me snap. Give me my phone. I want to call her myself. No. Derek, give me my phone. I said no. He put it in his pocket. You're not calling anyone. You're staying here, and we're going to work through this. Work through what? Your need to control every second of my life. His face changed. The mask of the reasonable husband cracked completely, and what I saw underneath terrified me. Pure rage. Control you. I've been protecting you. From yourself, from your terrible decisions, from everyone who wants to use you. And this is the thanks I get. I didn't ask to be protected. I asked to be loved. This is love. Everything I do is because I love you. This isn't love, Derek. This is abuse. The word hung in the air between us. I'd never said it before, never named what was happening to us. And the moment I did, I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Derek went very still. When he spoke, his voice was ice. Get out. What? I said get out. If you think I'm so terrible, if you think I'm abusing you, then leave. Get out of my house. Derek, it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm in my nightgown. I don't care what you're wearing. Get out. This is my home too. Your home. He laughed harsh and ugly. I paid for everything. The rent, the furniture, the food you eat, the clothes you wear. You own nothing, Elena. This is my house, and I want you out of it. Now. You can't just throw me out. Watch me. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise, and pulled me out of the bedroom. I stumbled, tried to resist, but he was stronger. He dragged me through the living room to the front door. I was crying, begging him to stop, to please just let us talk about this in the morning. Go to your family, he shouted. Since you love them so much, since they're so much better than me, go. He shoved me hard. I stumbled backward onto the porch, my bare feet hitting cold concrete. The door slammed. I heard the deadbolt click into place. I stood there disoriented, unable to process what had just happened. It was 40 degrees outside, maybe colder. A light rain was falling, that thin, persistent northwest drizzle that soaks through everything. I was wearing a cotton nightgown, thin and short, meant for sleeping in a heated bedroom, not for November weather. No shoes, no coat, no phone, no keys, no wallet, nothing. I banged on the door. Derek, please. Let me in. Let me at least get my phone. Silence. Derek. I banged harder. It's freezing out here. Please. Nothing. I looked around. Our street was quiet, suburban, the kind of neighborhood where people minded their own business. Most houses had their lights off already, but across the street Mr. Thompson's porch light was still on. I could see the blue glow of a television through his front window. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering so hard my teeth chattered. I had two choices: stand here and freeze, hoping Derek would eventually let me in, or ask for help. Pride and shame warred inside me. What would Mr. Thompson think? What would he say when he saw me like this, thrown out of my own home like trash? But cold was seeping into my bones and my feet were already numb. I couldn't stay here. I stepped off the porch, my bare feet hitting wet grass, then cold pavement. Every step hurt. I crossed the street, climbed Mr. Thompson's porch steps, and raised my hand to knock. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely make a fist. I knocked once, soft and uncertain, then again harder. The television sounds stopped. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and Mr. Thompson stood there in sweatpants and a flannel shirt, his reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked at me, and his expression went from confusion to horror in the space of a heartbeat. "My God," he said. "Elena, come in. Come in right now." Mr. Thompson didn't ask questions, not at first. He just pulled me inside, shut the door against the cold, and disappeared down a hallway. He came back with a thick fleece blanket that smelled like lavender detergent and wrapped it around my shoulders. "Sit," he said, gesturing to his couch. "I'm making you tea." I sat pulling the blanket tight, still shaking. The warmth of his house felt shocking after the cold outside. My feet were white bloodless, starting to tingle as feeling returned. I looked around his living room, trying to focus on anything other than what had just happened. Family photos on the mantel. A half-finished crossword puzzle on the coffee table. A calico cat watching me suspiciously from an armchair. Mr. Thompson came back with a mug of tea hot enough to steam. "Drink this," he said. Slowly. I wrapped my hands around the mug, absorbing its heat. He sat across from me in his recliner, waiting. He was a patient man, I knew that much. He'd lived across the street for the 3 years Derek and I had been there. Retired police officer, someone had told me once. Widower. His wife had died of cancer maybe 5 years back. He kept to himself mostly, but he was always kind. He waved when we passed on the street, helped Derek shovel snow last winter, brought us cookies at Christmas. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" he asked finally, his voice gentle. The story poured out. I hadn't meant to tell him everything, but once I started, I couldn't stop. I told him about the control, the isolation, the threats, about tonight's fight, about Derek throwing me out. Mr. Thompson listened without interrupting, his face growing harder with every sentence. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "This is domestic abuse, Elena. What you've described, what he's done to you, that's a crime." "I know," I whispered. "I know it is." "We need to call the police." Fear shot through me. "He'll get angrier. He said he'd ruin me if I ever told anyone. He knows people at my company. He could destroy my career. And what if the police don't believe me? He's so good at seeming normal, at making me look crazy." Mr. Thompson leaned forward, his eyes serious. "I was a cop for 32 years. I worked domestic violence cases. And I'm telling you what he's done tonight, throwing you out in the cold with no clothes, no phone, that's assault. That's illegal. The police will believe you because I'll corroborate your story. I saw what you looked like when you got here. I'm a witness. What if he talks his way out of it? He won't. Not this time. Elena, he can't hurt you anymore. I won't let him." The kindness in his voice, the absolute certainty, made something inside me break. I started crying huge, shaking sobs that I couldn't control. Mr. Thompson handed me a box of tissues and waited while I cried myself out. "Okay," I said finally. "Okay, call them." He picked up his phone. Within 20 minutes, 2 police cars pulled up outside. I watched through Mr. Thompson's window as officers got out, 4 of them, and my whole body tensed. This was real. This was happening. Officers Martinez and Chen came to Mr. Thompson's door. Officer Martinez was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Her partner was younger, maybe late 20s, with a notebook already out. They sat with me in Mr. Thompson's living room while he made more tea, and I told my story again. Every detail. The control, the isolation, the threats. Tonight. Officer Martinez took notes, asked clarifying questions, her expression never changing from professional concern. When I finished, she said, "I need to photograph your feet and arms. There's visible injury from being outside in the cold, and I saw bruises on your arm when you gestured." I looked down. My feet were red and swollen. My arm where Derek had grabbed me was already turning purple, 5 distinct finger marks in a circle. I hadn't even noticed. The photographs were clinical impersonal, and somehow that made it easier. Officer Chen documented everything while Officer Martinez explained what would happen next. "We're going to make contact with your husband. We need his statement. You'll stay here with Mr. Thompson until we're done." "He's not going to open the door," I said. "He never does when he doesn't want to deal with something." "Then we'll make him open it," Officer Martinez said. "This is a domestic violence call. We have the authority." I watched from the window as all 4 officers crossed the street to my house. Our house. Derek's house. I didn't know what to call it anymore. Officer Martinez knocked firm and official. The porch light came on. A minute passed. 2. Then the door opened, and Derek stood there, backlit, looking confused and concerned. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could read his body language. Surprise, confusion, then understanding, and the careful rearrangement of his features into something sympathetic. He was performing, I realized, playing the worried husband. He gestured them inside. Officer Chen stayed outside, walked over to Mr. Thompson's house. "Can you come give a statement, sir? And Elena, we'll need you to come over in a few minutes." My heart hammered. I didn't want to see Derek. Didn't want to be anywhere near him. But Officer Chen's expression was reassuring. "You'll be safe. I promise." Mr. Thompson came with me, the blanket still around my shoulders. We walked across the street, up the porch steps I'd stumbled down less than an hour ago, and into the house. Derek was in the living room with Officer Martinez and the other 2 officers. When he saw me, his face did something complicated. Shock, maybe, or calculation. "Elena," he said, and his voice was all concern, all bewildered hurt. "What's going on, officers? There's been some kind of misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Officer Martinez said. "Your wife says you threw her out of the house tonight in freezing weather wearing only a nightgown. Is that accurate?" "We had an argument," Derek said carefully. "Things got heated, but I didn't throw her out. She left on her own." "That's a lie," I said, and my voice was stronger than I expected. "You dragged me to the door and shoved me out. You locked me out. Elena, honey, you're upset. You're confused. Don't call me that. Don't pretend you care." Derek turned to the officers, spreading his hands in a gesture of reasonableness. "We've been having some marital issues. Elena's been stressed at work, and I think she's having some kind of breakdown. I love my wife. I would never hurt her." "Then explain the bruises on her arm," Officer Martinez said. 5 finger marks in a perfect circle. Explain her frozen feet, the hypothermia symptoms. Explain why your neighbor found her barefoot in 40-degree weather at 10:30 at night." Derek's mask slipped just for a second. Annoyance flashed across his face before he smoothed it away. "I may have grabbed her arm during our argument, but it wasn't violent. I was trying to keep her from leaving. And if she went outside, that was her choice. I can't control what she does." "You locked the door," Mr. Thompson said quietly. I heard it from across the street. The deadbolt. Derek's eyes narrowed. "This doesn't concern you." "It concerns me when I find a terrified woman on my doorstep, half frozen with no way to get help." Officer Martinez stepped between them. "Mr. Rivera, based on Mrs. Rivera's statement, the physical evidence and witness testimony, I'm placing you under arrest for domestic assault and unlawful restraint." The change in Derek was instantaneous. The reasonable facade cracked completely. "This is ridiculous. You can't arrest me in my own home for a marital disagreement." "We can and we are," Officer Martinez said. "Turn around and put your hands behind your back." Derek looked at me, then really looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes made my blood run cold. Hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred. "You're going to regret this," he said softly. "You have no idea what you've just done." "I do know," I said. "I'm saving my life." They handcuffed him, read him his rights, walked him out to the patrol car. I watched through the window as they put him in the back seat as the car pulled away with my husband inside. Ex-husband. He was my ex-husband now, whether the paperwork said so or not. Officer Martinez came back inside. "You can't stay here tonight. Do you have somewhere safe to go?" "She can stay with me," Mr. Thompson said immediately. "As long as she needs." "Good. Tomorrow you'll want to file for a restraining order. I can give you information on legal aid if you need it." And Elena. You did the right thing, calling for help, telling the truth that took real courage. I didn't feel courageous. I felt hollowed out, exhausted, scared of what came next. But I also felt something else. Something I hadn't felt in months. A tiny spark of hope. I spent that night on Mr. Thompson's couch, wrapped in blankets, unable to sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every car passing outside made me think Derek had somehow gotten out, was coming back. Mr. Thompson checked on me several times, bringing more tea and extra pillow, his calm presence a comfort against the chaos in my mind. Morning came slowly. When sunlight finally started filtering through the curtains, Mr. Thompson made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, and sat with me while I picked at it. "You need to eat," he said gently. "Keep your strength up." "I don't know what to do next," I admitted. "I don't know how to do any of this." "First thing, we go to the courthouse and file for a restraining order. Then we get you a lawyer. I know someone if you're interested. She's good, specializes in family law and domestic violence cases." "I don't have money for a lawyer. Derek controlled all our accounts. There's legal aid. And my friend Patricia Hughes, she sometimes does pro bono work. Let me make a call." By noon, I was sitting in Patricia Hughes's office, a small space above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Patricia was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and direct, with gray hair she wore in a practical bob. She listened to my story, took notes, and when I finished, she said, "You have a strong case. The arrest, the police report, the witness testimony, that's all solid evidence. We can file for divorce and a permanent restraining order simultaneously. What about what Derek said about ruining my career? Empty threats. He has no power to do that, and if he tries, it's harassment and potentially defamation. We document everything, build a case so strong he won't dare touch you. What about money, our joint account? We freeze it immediately. File a motion for temporary spousal support. You're entitled to half of everything accumulated during the marriage. He doesn't get to leave you destitute because you escaped." The word escaped hit me. That's what I'd done. Escaped. Like a prisoner. Like someone held captive. The reality of it settled over me, heavy and strange. Patricia walked me through next steps. Restraining order first filed that afternoon. The judge granted it temporarily, hearing scheduled for the following week. Derek was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me, from contacting me directly or through others, from going to my workplace. Violation meant immediate arrest. The police released Derek that morning on bail. I knew he'd be furious, knew he'd want revenge. But for the first time, there were consequences for his actions. Legal ones, real ones. Mr. Thompson drove me back to his house. My house across the street sat dark and empty. Derek gone somewhere. I needed to get my things, my documents, but the thought of going back inside made me feel sick. "Not today," Mr. Thompson said, reading my face. "One thing at a time." That week passed in a blur. I stayed with Mr. Thompson, sleeping on his couch, slowly piecing myself back together. My mom called frantic after a friend saw the arrest report in the local news. I told her everything, crying through most of it, and she cried too. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for help? He made me think you didn't care, that you agreed with him. I called you every week, baby, every single week. And when you stopped answering, I knew something was wrong. I should have driven down there, should have checked on you. It's not your fault, Mom. It's his. She drove up from Portland the next day, helped me start putting together documents for the divorce: birth certificate, social security card, tax returns. Patricia had given me a list. We made copies of everything, stored them at Mr. Thompson's, built a paper trail of my life before Derek tried to erase it. Sarah came too, appearing on Mr. Thompson's doorstep with bags of groceries and tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I should have known. I should have done something." "You did do something," I told her. "You kept trying to reach me. You didn't give up. That saved me." With their help, with Patricia's guidance, I started building a case, and I discovered I wasn't alone. Not even close. Mrs. Kim, the neighbor from the house to the left, came over with a written statement. She'd heard Derek yelling countless times, had seen me crying on the porch more than once. She'd wanted to help but didn't know how. "I'm so sorry I didn't do more," she said. "But I'll testify. Whatever you need." Two of my coworkers came forward. They'd noticed Derek's constant calls, had heard the way he spoke to me on the phone, controlling and demeaning. They'd been keeping their own documentation, worried but unsure how to intervene. Even Derek's own sister reached out. She'd escaped an abusive marriage years ago, recognized the signs in her brother's behavior. "He learned it from our dad," she told me over coffee. "The control, the rage, the need to dominate. I tried to warn you before the wedding, but I didn't push hard enough. I'm pushing now. I'll testify about his history, his patterns. He doesn't get to do this to someone else." The evidence piled up. Text messages Patricia subpoenaed from phone records. Banking statements showing Derek's financial control. The tracking app on my phone illegal without my consent. Statements from a dozen people who'd witnessed pieces of the abuse, the isolation, the control. Derek fought back, of course. He hired an expensive lawyer, tried to paint me as unstable, vindictive, a wife, scorned making false accusations. But his lawyer couldn't explain away the police report, the photographs of my bruises, the testimony of a retired cop who had nothing to gain by lying. The restraining order hearing came 3 weeks after that terrible night. I sat in a courtroom with Patricia beside me. Derek across the aisle with his lawyer, and told my story to a judge. Derek's lawyer tried to discredit me, but Patricia was ready. She presented evidence methodically, piece by piece, building an undeniable picture of abuse and control. The judge granted a permanent restraining order, 2 years renewable if needed. Derek wasn't allowed near me, near my workplace, near my family's homes. If he violated it, he'd face criminal charges. The divorce proceedings were uglier. Derek tried to claim he deserved everything because I'd abandoned the marriage. Patricia demolished that argument. Washington was a community property state. Everything acquired during the marriage was split 50-50 regardless of who earned it. Derek's salary was higher, but my contributions to the household mattered just as much. It took 4 months, but eventually we settled. I got half the savings, half the value of the car, half of everything. Derek was ordered to pay my attorney fees. The judge noted in her ruling that Derek's financial abuse and control warranted the award. I also got something else: my freedom. The first month after leaving was the hardest. I moved out of Mr. Thompson's guest room and into a small studio apartment near Green Lake. It was tiny, just one room with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but it was mine. My name on the lease, my key in the lock, my life inside those walls. But freedom felt terrifying at first. I woke up every morning in a panic, sure Derek was standing over me. Every unexpected sound made me jump. I couldn't sleep without checking the locks 3 times. Couldn't leave the apartment without looking over my shoulder. The nightmares were constant. Derek chasing me. Derek finding me. Derek hurting me in ways he never had in real life, but that my traumatized brain invented anyway. I started therapy with Dr. Lauren West, a psychologist who specialized in trauma. Twice a week I sat in her comfortable office with its soft lighting and plants everywhere, and I talked. About Derek. About the abuse. About the shame I still felt for staying so long, for not seeing the signs sooner, for believing his lies. You didn't stay because you were weak, Dr. West told me. You stayed because he systematically destroyed your support system, your confidence, your sense of self. That's what abusers do. They isolate and manipulate until leaving seems impossible. The fact that you got out at all shows incredible strength. I didn't feel strong. I felt broken, fragile, like I might shatter if someone looked at me wrong. But Dr. West was patient. She taught me about trauma responses, about how my hypervigilance and panic were normal reactions to abnormal circumstances. She taught me grounding techniques for when the anxiety got too bad, helped me process the grief of losing the marriage I'd thought I had. Because I was grieving. Not for Derek, but for the man I'd thought he was. For the life I'd imagined we'd build together. That grief was real, even though the relationship was toxic. Dr. West helped me understand that I could mourn what I'd lost while also celebrating what I'd gained. Slowly, so slowly, I barely noticed at first things got easier. I reconnected with my mom, visiting her in Portland every other weekend. We cooked together, went for walks, rebuilt the relationship Derek had tried to destroy. She never said, "I told you so," never blamed me. She just loved me steadily and unconditionally until I started believing I deserved that love. Sarah and I became close again, too. She took me to brunch at that place by Green Lake we'd never made it to, and we laughed until we cried over ridiculous stories from our college days. She listened when I needed to talk, distracted me when I needed to forget, and never once made me feel like a burden. I joined a support group for domestic violence survivors. Once a week, I sat in a circle with 8 other women and we shared our stories. Some were still in the early stages of leaving. Some had been out for years. All of them understood in a way no one else could. They didn't judge when I admitted, I sometimes miss Derek, missed the good days before everything went bad. They just nodded. They'd been there too. One woman, Grace, became a friend. She'd left her husband 5 years ago after 20 years of marriage. "It gets better," she promised. "One day you'll wake up and realize you didn't think about him first thing. Then it'll be a whole day without thinking about him. Then a week. And eventually he'll just be a chapter in your story, not the whole book." I started doing things for myself. Small things at first. I bought books I wanted to read, not ones Derek approved of. I wore bright colors, again dresses and blouses. I chose because I liked them. I went to movies alone, joined a yoga class, started journaling in the mornings with coffee I made exactly how I liked it. I learned to be alone without being lonely. My little studio apartment became a sanctuary, not a prison. I decorated it with plants and art. I picked out myself, filled it with music I chose, made it a space that felt safe and mine. Work helped too. My manager, Patricia, the one who'd noticed something was wrong, became an unexpected ally. She helped me navigate the awkwardness of returning after everyone knew what had happened. Some coworkers were supportive, bringing coffee offering to help however they could. Others were awkward, not knowing what to say. A few avoided me altogether. I learned to focus on the ones who cared and let the rest go. I threw myself into my job, taking on new projects, proving to myself that Derek's threats had been empty. No one fired me. No one thought I was unstable. If anything, my coworkers respected me more for having the courage to leave. 6 months after that November night, I got a promotion. Assistant Director of Marketing, a position I'd wanted for years. When I told Dr. West, she smiled. "You're rebuilding. You're thriving." "I'm trying." "You're succeeding." Mr. Thompson remained a constant in my life. We had coffee every Sunday morning, a tradition that started during those first terrible weeks and stuck. He became the father figure I'd needed, steady and kind, never pushing, but always there. When I had bad days, when the fear crept back in, he reminded me how far I'd come. "You saved yourself that night," he told me once. "I just opened the door." "You did more than that. You believed me. You helped me fight back. Because you were worth fighting for. Don't ever forget that." It's been 18 months now since Derek threw me out into the cold. 18 months since Mr. Thompson opened his door and changed everything. I wish I could say I'm completely healed, that the trauma is behind me, but that would be a lie. I still have bad days. I still sometimes wake up from nightmares. I still feel a jolt of fear when I see a man who looks like Derek from behind. But I also have good days. Great days. Days when I wake up in my apartment, sun streaming through the windows, and feel nothing but gratitude for the life I've built. Days when I meet my mom for lunch and we laugh about nothing important. Days when Sarah drags me to some new restaurant and we talk for hours. Days when I come home from work proud of what I accomplished, and the only opinion that matters is my own. I learned something crucial through all of this. Control masked as love is still control. When someone says they're protecting you but they're really imprisoning you, that's not care. That's abuse. And you don't owe anyone your compliance, your silence, or your suffering. I learned that leaving isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing I've ever done. Every day I chose to stay was a day I survived. The day I chose to leave was the day I started living. I learned that I'm stronger than I knew. Strong enough to rebuild. Strong enough to trust again slowly and carefully. Strong enough to look at my story and own it without shame. Derek tried to make me small, to make me disappear into the shadow of his control. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I'm not small anymore. I don't hate Derek, not anymore. Hate takes energy I'd rather spend on building my future. I pity him, the broken person who can only feel powerful by breaking others. And I'm grateful to him in a strange way, because surviving him taught me what I'm capable of. It taught me my own worth. Last week I ran into Derek's sister at a coffee shop. We talked for a few minutes and she told me Derek's in therapy now, court-ordered, as part of his probation for the assault charge. She doesn't know if it'll help, if he'll change. Some people do, she said. Some people don't. I hope he does. Not for my sake, but for whoever comes after me. I hope he learns that love isn't control, that partnership isn't ownership, that another person's autonomy isn't a threat to your worth. But whether he changes or not isn't my concern anymore. My concern is my own healing, my own growth, my own life. I think about that November night sometimes. How cold it was. How terrified I felt standing on that porch. How my whole life seemed to be ending. I think about the moment I decided to cross the street to knock on Mr. Thompson's door to ask for help. That moment was a hinge. Everything before it was one life. Everything after is another. If you're reading this, if something in your relationship feels wrong, trust that feeling. It's not your imagination. It's not you being too sensitive or dramatic or broken. If someone who claims to love you is making you feel small, scared, or trapped, that's not love. Love doesn't isolate. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't demand you give up pieces of yourself until there's nothing left. There's always a door. Maybe it's a neighbor's door like mine was. Maybe it's a friend's phone number. Maybe it's a hotline or a shelter or a police station. The door might feel impossibly far away when you're trapped inside your fear. But it's there. And when you find the courage to walk toward it, when you knock and ask for help, someone will open it. And when you walk through, when you step from that old life into something new and uncertain and terrifying, you'll discover something amazing. You'll find yourself on the other side. Battered, maybe. Scarred, definitely. But also stronger. Freer. More yourself than you've been in years. The journey isn't easy. Some days it feels impossible. But you're worth the fight. You're worth saving. You're worth the life you'll build on the other side of that door. I'm living proof of that. I'm building that life right now, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of freedom at a time. And if I can do it, so can you. Have you ever felt trapped in a relationship where love felt more like control? Or maybe you know someone going through something similar. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please share this story if you think it might help someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about survival strength and finding your way back to yourself. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that no matter how dark things seem, there's always a path forward. You deserve to be free. You deserve to be loved without conditions. You deserve to be yourself. Stay strong, take care, and remember that asking for help isn't weakness. It's the first step toward getting your life back.